All right, today we're going to dive into a really provocative strategy for creating some serious value. Now, I want you to forget everything you've been told about being more available, about always saying yes. The core idea we're breaking down is this. To become truly valuable, you don't add more. You have to strategically take away access to yourself.
Okay, let's just sit with that for a second. This one sentence completely flips the whole script on wealth, doesn't it? It suggests the problem isn't that you're missing some kind of talent or resource. No, the problem is that you are just too available, too easy to use up, and ultimately way too replaceable.
So, according to the source material we're looking at, the way we normally diagnose our financial problems is just completely wrong. It's not about a personal failure. It's not about not working hard enough. It's a structural problem. It's all about where you're positioned in the marketplace.
And here's exactly what that positional problem means. It's this disadvantage you actually create for yourself by being too accessible, too quick to jump in and help, too eager to serve. Basically, you're standing so close to the demand that you turn yourself into a commodity, not a high-value asset.
This is where it gets really fascinating. This slide splits social virtues from the cold, hard mechanics of the market. See, the source basically says the market is this cold machine. It doesn't reward you for being a good person or for putting in the hours. It rewards leverage, it rewards scarcity, and most of all, it rewards what it's afraid of losing.
So this leads us to what might be the single biggest enemy of creating value, your own availability. We're about to see how being helpful and responsive, the things that make you a great friend or a great colleague, can actually be completely devastating to your economic power. I mean, this is the default setting for most of us, right? We think that if we're open and generous and quick to respond, people will value us more. But the argument here is that this belief isn't just a little bit wrong, it's a profound, fundamental mistake.
And this slide just lays that disconnect out perfectly. Socially, yeah, people might appreciate your availability. They'll thank you for it. But in the economic game, that exact same availability signals that you're replaceable. You get a thank you, but that gratitude doesn't translate into power, and it sure doesn't translate into a bigger paycheck.
And this is the key right here. Your behavior is constantly signaling your value to the world. An instant reply sends a very clear subconscious message. Nothing else important is competing for my time right now. You are basically telling the world your time is worth nothing, and you're training people to treat it that way.
Okay, so let's shift from the problem to the solution. Engineering scarcity. And listen, this isn't about playing hard to get or being a jerk. It's about fundamentally redesigning how people can access you so you can create real tangible value.
It is so critical to get this definition right. Scarcity isn't about hiding or being rude. It's the strategic addition of friction. By making it just a little bit harder to get your time, to get your attention, you force other people to stop and recalibrate your value upwards.
And this slide makes such an important distinction. Think about it. If you're absent and literally no one notices, that's isolation. That's weakness. But if you're absent by choice and your absence makes the whole system pause and wait for you, that is selective presence. And that, my friends, is the foundation of power.
So how do you actually start doing this? Well, the source gives us a three-step process. First, you have to do a ruthless audit of where you are overexposed. Second, you intentionally create friction, barriers. And third, and this is the hardest part, you have to endure the initial pushback. Because that resistance you feel, that's the proof that your new boundaries are actually working.
Now, scarcity isn't just some one-dimensional thing. The source identifies three distinct levels. Scarcity of your time, that's the basic level. Scarcity of your attention is way more powerful, but the real endgame where wealth truly accelerates is scarcity of your decision-making, when you become the essential bottleneck they have to wait for to make the call.
Okay, now we get to the sharp end of the strategy, the tactics. And we'll start with how you set your price, not as a request, but from a position of pure power.
This is the core rule. Read it again. Price is not justified, it is imposed. The source is arguing that the moment you start explaining why you cost what you cost, you are submitting. You're asking for permission, and that instantly tanks your position. I mean, think about it. The second you start justifying your price, the conversation stops being about the value you bring to the table. It immediately becomes about how much you're willing to come down. You've stopped selling value, and you've started auctioning off your own insecurity.
Let's look at the next big tactic. And again, it just flips conventional wisdom right on its head. It's the idea that real wealth isn't built by adding more stuff to your plate, but by strategically removing things from it.
The argument here is simple, but it is so profound. Until you learn to prune away the people, the projects, the commitments that devalue you, well, anything new you try to add is just being built on a really weak and crumbling foundation.
And let's be clear, this isn't about losing things, it's a strategic investment in yourself. Every single cut you make from this list buys back your leverage, it buys back your energy, it buys back your focus. It sends a powerful signal to yourself and the market that you refuse to be devalued.
So where does all this need? What's the end game? Well, all of these tactics are designed to build a specific way of being, what the source calls a posture of power, that just naturally commands value.
First, they live by the principle of not explaining. They just don't. They understand that that urge to clarify everything is really just a hidden urge to seek approval, which is a classic low-status behavior. Their actions, their price, that does all the talking.
Second, they absolutely do not overcommit. They see a packed calendar not as a sign of importance, but as a trap. They intentionally design empty space into their lives because they know that space is where the leverage, the big opportunities, and the clear thinking actually happen.
And finally, and this one might be the toughest of all, they allow themselves to be misunderstood. They fight that urge to correct every little narrative about them because they know that desperate need for control is really a surrender of power. They just let the results speak for themselves.
And this brings us to the final, really provocative question the source leaves us with. It turns this entire framework right back on you. In your daily life, in every email you send, every meeting you take, every decision you make, are you building leverage, or are you just quietly begging for approval? The answer to that question determines your price.